ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਕੈਟਲਮੈਨਜ਼ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਬੌਬ ਲੋਵੇ ਅਤੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਉਪ ਕਾਰਜਕਾਰੀ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਪੱਤਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਪੈਸੀਫਿਕ ਰੇਲਵੇ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਾਮਿਲ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਲੰਬੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੱਕ ਕੰਮ ਦੇ ਰੁਕਣ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਸਤੂ ਸਮੂਹਾਂ ਅਤੇ ਮੌਜੂਦਾ ਸਪਲਾਈ ਚੇਨ ਦੇਰੀ ਕਾਰਨ ਪੈਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਚਰਚਾ ਕੀਤੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਬੈਕ ਟੂ ਵਰਕ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਲਾਗੂ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਮੰਗ ਵੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ।
Today, we're gathered with other agriculture stakeholders to emphasize our shared concern about the work stoppage at CP Rail and our request for the immediate introduction of back-to-work legislation. As you know, this past year, Canadian farmers and ranchers had a difficult growing season, with one of the widest spread droughts in history stretching from the Great Lakes all the way to British Columbia. This has meant that to feed our cattle, we've been dependent on importing feed from the United States via CP Rail. We already have experience with the significant impact disruptions in rail can have on our producers, as this January, due to Omicron and cold weather, trains were delayed, and this resulted in severe feed shortages and some cattle producers coming within hours of running out of feed. Although trains have been running this past number of weeks, we have not been able to build a stockpile of feed, and currently we only have a 1 to 2 week buffer of feed in the system before we won't have any feed for our cattle. I would also note that there are not enough trucks available to transport the feed. It is estimated that over 1,000 Super B trucks would be needed weekly to replace the volume of feed grain currently being transported by CP trains, and trucking capacity is not available, leaving no alternative solutions. That is why we've been consistently urging the negotiating parties to reach a resolution, and today, following yesterday's work stoppage, have to ask the federal government to intervene and implement back-to-work legislation immediately. Time is very sensitive, and we are urging MPs and senators to address this through back-to-work legislation with urgency.
I would like to shed some light today on the impact that this work stoppage is going to have on our members. To be frank, for grain growers, the railways represent a lifeline. They rely on this vital connection for several reasons, not the least of which are to receive critical deliveries of fertilizer and other inputs required to put a crop in the ground as we head into a crucial spring planting season. As our farmers prepare for spring, they're still experiencing the fallout from last year's disappointing growing season. On a farm, cash flow is king, and the railways represent the only way to bring back what little remains of last year's grain to market and support what we hope will be a bounce-back season for Canadian crops. The impact of this work stoppage compounds the particularly vulnerable position that farmers already find themselves in. Our agri-food system generates over $55 billion annually, but with the fallout from the war in Ukraine, our international customers require quick reassurance that a spring crop will go in the ground without delays caused by supply chain interruptions. The bottom line is that our members rely on this critical infrastructure to get our product to customers across Canada and around the world. Therefore, we are calling on the federal government to use any tool at its disposal to bring